Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our true final iteration, final addition to Cal and I's Top 10 Best Series with my Top 10 2023 NFL wide receiver trios. And of course, since we got the news knocked out yesterday, or should we say shot out yesterday, we can jump straight into my top 10, starting with the honorable mention of the Carolina Panthers, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Jonathan Mingo. Now, this is of course a huge question mark, mostly because of a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young, but one of the better rookie quarterback prospects we've seen in a while, probably since Trevor Lawrence, so not that long ago, but so big question mark there with the rookie, but you have that nice veteran presence in Adam Thielen, a true safety blanket. DJ Chark is an okay all-around guy, and I think rookie Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss is going to build a strong rookie connection with Bryce Young and really prove himself early as a surprise.
Yeah, and if he does that, then this could definitely form a very dangerous trio. And those Ole Miss wide receivers post 2016 have really shown that they're able to get the job done in the NFL.
Not Laquan Treadwell, he could not get the job done.
No.
But
Maybe
yeah,
he'll break out this year in Baltimore.
Yeah, he's got the talent in front of him. He doesn't have much pressure on him. But Jonathan Mingo, I believe, tore his ACL or had some sort of injury late into the season his last year in college.
I believe so.
And it really dropped his draft stock. So the Panthers got him in the third round, I want to say, which was a steal for him. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. Next up, at number 10, I could not do a top 10 list without these guys on there. I have the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison, mostly just because you can't have a top 10 list talking anything about wide receivers and not have Justin Jefferson on it. Definition of elite. Very arguably, I would say it every day that he's the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. And if you look at KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison, their skill sets really complement Justin Jefferson really well. KJ Osborne is just a good all-around guy. He can play in the slot. He can kind of play outside. He's very clutch. He catches game-winning touchdowns constantly, it seems like, which is so random. And then Jordan Addison, we'll have to see how he actually does, but a solid route runner with some good straight-line speed. I think the Vikings could surprise as a trio, not just Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I just didn't see them as enough of a trio yet to put them on my list, but I thought that KJ Osborne really impressed me last year. He really showed up and proved that he can be that third man and be that third option at wide receiver. And they just need to have Jordan Addison fill in those wide receiver two shoes that Adam Thielen left to go to Carolina.
Yeah, it's really funny because KJ Osborne came out of the same draft as Justin Jefferson in 2020, just in the 5th round. And now these past few years, he's kind of been like, guys, don't forget about me. Look at it. I'm a wide receiver as well. I'm here. But hard to beat out a guy like Justin Jefferson. Now at number 9, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson. I would actually more say Josh Palmer is going to be that wide receiver 3, at least early in the season until Quentin Johnson develops a little bit more. But, I mean, they're practically the same player, Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer. Hell, they're all 3 practically the same player, if we're being honest. But they're all 3 really good players, so sometimes that's not the worst thing to be the same.
Yeah, these guys almost go 4 deep. I mean, they can go wide receiver quads with Josh Palmer added on there. But yeah, I definitely believe that Palmer will be the starter or the third person to start before Quentin Johnson, just because I figured, veteran presence, that's how it'll go. Yeah. Unless he really beats him out in training camp and shows that he can be a true number 1.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it'd be a good way to shadow for Quentin Johnson because they're all the same. Next up at 8, I have the Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. Now, CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup were okay by themselves after the departure of Amari Cooper 2 years ago, I believe. No, just 1 year ago. But now, this offseason, they pick up Brandon Cooks, who's a really good veteran presence and a guy who, even though he's getting a little bit up there in age, still has a lot to bring to the table and still can go out there and show out. I mean, he even showed it with the Texans, which is hard to do, that's for sure. And he's been a lot of different places. New Orleans, I can't even think of them. He's been to
LA,
LA,
New England.
He's been to like 4 or 5 places, and everywhere he goes, he's just a really solid piece. So no reason to think he won't be in Dallas.
Yeah, and he'll definitely be a big piece in that offense because of the way that they're going to pass the ball around so much in that offense. I think everyone will go over 1,000 yards, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens.
Yeah, they're really going to have to show a presence on the outside, losing Dalton Schultz this offseason. Now they're struggling a little bit at tight end. They did pick up rookie Darnell Washington, which should help. But moving on to number 7, I have another NFC East team with the Philadelphia Eagles, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Quez Watkins. Now, of course, this is one of those teams that I kind of talked crap about yesterday in Callan's episode when I was talking about the Miami Dolphins, how they had such a huge drop-off at that number 3. Which, don't get me wrong, the Eagles definitely have a drop-off at that number 3. But Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are both amazing wide receivers, borderline elite on both of them if you ask me. And the reason I had them on my list and not the Dolphins is because Quez Watkins isn't near as good, but he complements them much better with that straight line speed, which is something that Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown have, but aren't necessarily as known for as Quez Watkins.
Yeah, and I just couldn't put them on my top 10 list for the same reason you didn't put the Dolphins on this one. I just didn't feel like that drop-off at number 3 was enough to warrant a spot on the trio list. If this was a duo list, I believe they'd be on there, but looking at all 3 as a whole, I just don't believe they have enough depth down in Philly to really carve out a good wide receiver role for Quez Watkins.
We'll have to have a little bit of a mental battle and keep track of the stats on Cedrick Wilson and Quez Watkins and see who does better. The showdown of the century, Cedrick Wilson versus Quez Watkins. That's what it'll be. But moving on to number 6, I have the Las Vegas Raiders, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is just a solid veteran presence in that slot. Man, he is the definition of slippery, both with and without the ball in his hands. And then, like I said yesterday, Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams just complement each other so well. Jacoby Myers is just pure, consistently good. And Devontae Adams does have a couple of down games here and there, but then there's other games where he is straight up unstoppable. Where does the question mark fall? Jimmy Garoppolo, as always.
It all comes down to Jimmy G and how he performs this year in this offense. And even though he was able to get it done at times in San Francisco, it'll be interesting to see how he does when reuniting with Josh McDaniels in that New England Patriots style offense.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Moving on to my number 5, I have a little bit of a surprise here with the Washington Commanders with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuels, and Jahan Dotson. Now, Terry McLaurin is a true number 1 here and would be pretty much anywhere in the NFL. This guy is just so all-around good. He doesn't completely wow you in any section, but he is just so extremely solid in every aspect of being a wide receiver, which makes him so good. Curtis Samuel had a down year last year. He definitely needs to show up and play better to make this a really good trio. But I think that Jahan Dotson, who had a really good rookie season last year, might even pass Samuel up and become a wide receiver too, which would take a lot of pressure off Samuels if he could be more of a slot wide receiver 3 rather than a bona fide number 2.
Yeah, and I think that that slot position would fit Curtis Samuel much better to his receiving type. And I think that Jahan Dotson needs to take over that number 2 spot for them to really take that next step and be a true trio. And if they didn't have the rookie quarterback, well, I guess not, the first-year starting quarterback, rookie, Sam Howell, they might have made my list, but they were just on the outside looking in on mine.
Yeah, that's definitely where the question mark falls again, is quarterback. But I'm a Sam Howell believer. I'll come out and say it. I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback coming out of the gate, but I think he's going to have a much more solid season than people give him credit for. Now moving into the thick of my top 5, I have the Seattle Seahawks at number 4 with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. It kind of made Callan nervous putting a rookie this high on his list, but I think that Jackson Smith-Njigba is more than good enough especially considering he's the wide receiver 3 here and has 2 really good, if not maybe even elite wide receivers ahead of him. So it makes it a lot easier on a rookie when they don't have that pressure on them and they can just go out there and ball out without having to be the entire wide receiving core.
Yeah, this might be where the Seahawks end up at the end of the year instead of kind of my preseason ranking of them being at number 9. But I definitely agree that Smith-Njigba could have a really huge year this year by just being that number 3 option and being able to catch the ball and learn the offense and probably get a lot of single one-on-one coverage.
Yeah, it's funny because this is a team that don't really wow you with their stats just because the Seahawks don't really throw the ball with the best of them in the league, or I guess with the most of them in the league. They don't throw it as often, but there's just so much talent on this wide receiver corps.
Geno Smith,
baby. Can he do it 2 years in a row? Next up, I have my number 3 with the Denver Broncos, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and a returning Tim Patrick. Now, this was a huge letdown last year. I think I might have had him at number 3 or number 2 even last year as well.
They were pretty high last
year. They were
year.
Super high, but I don't think Russell Wilson has 2 bad years in a row. They get rid of Nathaniel Hackett and get more of a coaching mind like Sean Payton there at head coach. You get Tim Patrick back, who's hopefully will be at 100% and really hopefully can stay healthy this year. All 3 of them, but especially Tim Patrick after that super sad preseason or mini camp injury even last year.
It was a training camp injury, ACL.
Lots of question marks here in a lot of different ways, so we'll see how it goes, but they certainly have the talent to end up in this top 3.
Yeah, when fully healthy, this is one of the top 3 units in the NFL, and they can prove it this year if they're able to just put a consistent performance together and get on the same page as Russell Wilson, who constantly looked lost last year in this offense.
Broncos country, let's ride. Moving on to number 2, I have what Callan said was a surprise yesterday and is maybe agreeable, but not too much to me because I have the Jacksonville Jaguars at my number 2 with Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and Zay Jones. Calvin Ridley is a little bit of a question mark since he didn't play last year, but only 1 year doesn't really wipe you. It wasn't because of injury. It's not like he's coming off of injury. It was kind of silly, so he's going to be coming back with a vengeance. I think he has a lot of momentum behind him. Christian Kirk really proved himself in that big contract last year, so I think he'll keep that rolling. I think Zay Jones is going to be a sneaky good wide receiver. He did well at that wide receiver 2 role last year and now has even less pressure on him at that wide receiver 3.
Yeah, how he plays really depends on how this offense goes, I believe. He's going to be a major key to this offense is Zay Jones. And I believe Calvin Ridley coming off a year off, if he can really get back to that number 1 wide receiver form, they could really be one of the top offenses in the NFL.
Yeah, and they have Trevor Lawrence, who was on a roll towards the end of last year, who could easily keep that going as well. And then I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today. It's just the obvious pick. At my number 1, I have the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. There's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. These guys are all 3 just so good. And more than anything, they are all 3 so good together.
It's the most pure trio in the NFL. All 3 guys are number 1 options. And you just don't get that, and you don't see that in the NFL very much. And the Bengals really have quite the fortune to have all 3 guys currently in their prime.
I would really like to see kind of an alternate universe where Tyler Boyd is a number 1 somewhere and see if he could keep it rolling and play as well as he does at that number 3 as a number 1, because he's the only one that's a little bit of a question mark there, but he just complements the other 2 so well.
He was their number 1 before they got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So.
Yeah, and he wasn't bad at all.
No.
So I'd be interested to see how he holds up in today's NFL. So for today, that was my top 10 prediction for wide receiver trios in the 2023 NFL season. I hope you all enjoyed. Not sure what the next few episodes or weeks are going to be. We'll have to try to think of some stuff. I know we have mini camp coming up, so we'll probably just do mostly news and a few other prediction type things like this, but we'll keep you informed and hopefully you will keep watching. But until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.